Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 3 of the Action Athletixx Podcast. My name is Nathanael Morton. I'm your host, and I am a sports performance trainer who specializes in basketball players. And I am joined with my good friend, Kevin. How are you, Kevin?
I'm good. I'm excited. How are you, Nate?
I'm doing really well. Why'd you say my name like that?
I don't know. I always usually say Nathaniel.
That was I heard some disrespect with that one.
No disrespect intended.
All right. Guys, I'm extremely excited for this podcast today. We have a banger today, Kevin. We have a banger. I did want to announce 2 things before we get started. Number 1, I wanted everyone out there to know that right now, as Kevin and I sit here, Kevin has his t-shirt tucked into his sweatpants.
That's right. I call it the professional, casual, chillaxed look is what I call it.
Professional?
You wanna know
why?
Why? Because, I like to wear track pants. I like to wear tennis shoes. They make me comfortable, right? But then at the same time, we're out here recording. People are going to see this. And I figure I still want to be comfy. I'm just going to tuck my t-shirt in. Look professional. It looks very good. I'm not going to stand up and show you guys, but I'm telling you, I feel ready to go. I feel motivated. I'm ready.
That was kind of good. I for a second there, I almost thought that maybe I too should tuck my shirt into my sweatpants.
Yeah, but you can't because you're wearing that nice First Form hoodie.
Right. Anyways, that was my first announcement. My second announcement is that, Kevin, there's going to be a lot of excuses that arise in people's minds when we go through this podcast. I already know it because I'm going to say some things and people out there are going to be listening, and the first thing that is going to pop in their head is the reasons as to why they can't do that. So, and you don't even know, you know that we're talking about recovery, but you don't know specifically which points I'm talking about.
Yep.
But for everybody out there listening, what I want you to do right now, if you are driving, I want you to put all of your excuses, if you have any, maybe you don't, maybe you're a grinder, you understand what it takes and you are willing to do what it takes. But if you have any inkling of any excuses that might pop into your head during this podcast, what I want you to do is, if you are driving, put it in your mouth, chew it up, roll down the window, spit it out the window. If you are listening to this at work, if you have an office job, put your excuses in the paper shredder, okay? Shred it up, and then in that little bin that's underneath, Kevin, pull it out, and then shred it once more, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll give one more analogy.
Okay, yeah, please.
If you are, let's say, a fry cook, if we have any fry cooks listening out there while you're cooking food, go to the garbage disposal.
Okay.
First, give it the people's elbow, meaning that have you watched wrestling?
Yeah.
You hit your excuses with your elbow.
Okay.
Into the garbage disposal.
All right.
And then turn it on and just grind them up.
Okay.
So those are my 2 announcements. Number 1, Kevin is on one with his shirt tucked in, and number 2, there are going to be a lot of excuses that pop into your head while we are talking and doing this podcast. But if you argue for your excuses, they will become real. And what is the point, Kevin, of going through life thinking about all the reasons of why you can't? Okay, that's. I'm just going to leave it there, and you guys will understand what I mean as we go through this podcast.
Interesting.
Very
interesting.
So what we are talking about today is 5 ways that you can optimize your recovery as an athlete, because recovery is extremely important. Tip number 1 to improve and optimize your recovery is to optimize your sleep. You have to optimize your sleep in order to optimize your recovery. Now, I want to talk about a bunch of different topics about how you can optimize your sleep, and I want to bring up a bunch of different studies on how you can optimize your sleep and why you need to optimize your sleep. So, when I said people are going to come up with excuses as to why they can't, this is the main thing that I was talking about. The first tip that you need to do to optimize your sleep is to stop using an alarm to wake up. Let me finish, Kevin, because I know that you use an alarm. Stop using an alarm to wake up. You are not supposed to sleep until the alarm goes off. You are supposed to sleep until the work is done in your brain and your body. Now, I understand that right now, as I am speaking, someone is out there driving, and they're not chewing up their excuses and spitting them out the window. They are saying to themselves, Nathanael Morton, I have work. I have school. I have prior obligations that I need to wake up for. I can't just not set an alarm. Chew it up, spit it out the window, because you can go to bed earlier. And as we explain on this podcast, we are not here to say weak shit. So let me ask you this, Kevin, for $1 million, could you not use an alarm to wake up tomorrow morning and wake up yourself for whatever prior obligations you might have? Could you do that for $1 million?
I'm a difficult person to ask because as a whole, my sleep schedule's already messed up. But I will tell you that for $1 million, if you told me, I probably couldn't sleep, to be honest, because I'd be like, oh yeah, like I'm about to get this $1 million, blah, blah, blah. Like there's no way I'm sleeping. But my only thing to that is I understand where you're coming from, but here's the excuse coming. Are you ready?
Yes.
If you are a grinder like me and you have school, you have family obligations, friend obligations, because Nate's a very, very...
These would be business obligations.
No, not business obligations. No, friend obligations.
But you also
he wants me to hang out with him all the time. Like, you have no idea, guys. I'm telling you. This dude, he texts me like every hour asking me what I'm just kidding. I'm just playing. He
this is
do all
cap,
that.
as the kids would say.
Yeah. So, no, but realistically, getting back on point. So, basically, I couldn't do that. And here's the excuse, because I would stay up later doing things like hanging out with the family or working on homework or working on business related stuff that we have going on or other things. See, I do not go to sleep nearly on time as like I should. I mean, realistically. So I feel like you're more talking about the people that are going to sleep at a normal time, that have that, internal alarm clock to wake them up, like, every single day at 5 a.m. or whatever it is. I just lack the ability to have that. Does that make sense? So that's my excuse. And I'll take that and I'll go to your garbage disposal. I'll people's elbow it and I'll put it in there. All right. Later though.
All right. So we could go back and forth, and other people who are listening, we could argue back and forth all day long as to whether or not you can wake up without an alarm. But I will just say, I was a teacher, correct?
Yes.
For 5 years, and I did not use an alarm to wake up. I went to bed earlier. However, I did set an alarm to, for a worst case scenario if I didn't wake up, internally,
right,
with that internal alarm clock. So you can set an alarm and then go to bed earlier and try to wake up without an alarm. Try to let your body sleep until the work is done in your muscles, your tendons, your central nervous system. And if all else fails, use that alarm as like a last resort. Oh man, I didn't do it today. Dang, I'll try again tomorrow. Wake up, make it to work on time, make it to school on time.
Right. And I understand that, but here's the problem that I feel like a lot of people are going to run into is that, these ideas, about, getting the full rest that your body needs. It used to be pushed on us that, we were okay for somewhere between 6 to 8 hours of sleep, when we were in high school. So that's what a lot of us did. Oh, okay, cool. I'll get somewhere between 6 to 8 hours of sleep. But then when it comes down to it, here we are years later and our sleep schedules are all messed up. I mean, obviously you knew ahead of time. You were ahead of the curve, So my question to you is, if you are somebody out there right now listening and you want to try to do exactly what Nate was just talking about, what would your advice be to like start off first? Like, what do you have to do to start to get that kind of like sleep schedule right? What would you say where did you start?
You try to go to bed a little bit earlier.
Okay, so that's just a little bit earlier, right, kind of like every day.
Let's say you have work at 7 o'clock and you set your alarm at 6 o'clock. Let's just make it easy. What I would do is if you go to bed around, 11, try to go to bed around 10. And if you still set that alarm, that last resort, if you still don't wake up on your own in that alarm, maybe then you're not going to bed early enough. So now I got to try 9 p.m. Then you try 9. And if you sleep until your alarm goes off, first of all, this tells you that your body probably needs more sleep than you've been getting.
Right.
But you try to make that bedtime a little bit earlier, a little bit earlier, a little bit earlier until you find that sweet spot. Even if, listen, I'm not saying go to bed at 7 p.m., but there were some days where I went to bed at 7:30 p.m.
In the winter, it's kind of easy to do that, to be honest. In the summer, it's a little bit harder because the sun's still out. But in the winter, especially, right around this time, September, October, I mean, it's perfect weather to actually go to sleep early.
Right. So this is to answer your question, where I would start is I would try to go to bed earlier. I would set that alarm as your last resort, and I would try to beat your alarm and wake up before your alarm goes off, this is the main thing that I want people to understand. You need to sleep until the work is done, not when your alarm goes off. Now, I don't want to get too far into this, but I understand there's people out there, there's parents, there's kids who have practiced really late, they have homework. There's a lot of people out there who this might not work for, right? I understand that. I just don't want people to argue for their excuses if they could do this. If you have practice at 8 p.m. and you get to bed at, 10:30 p.m. and you have to be up for school at 6 a.m., it's going to be tough to do. So this might be the only time that you hear me say this, but I understand that this is not for everyone, but I don't want people to argue for their excuses because they're going to become real.
Understandable. Good point.
All right, so very quickly before we move on, I did want to bring up 2 studies for anybody out there who might be thinking to themselves, I want to get more sleep. I know it's a good idea if I get more sleep, but I got so much to do. I got basketball practice. I got skills training. I got all this stuff to do. I might not have time to get that extra sleep. These studies, I believe, are going to push you over the edge and help you realize why you might need that extra hour or 2 of sleep at night.
Okay, I have an idea. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Picture that I am a 17-year-old kid in front of you. I just asked you to convince me to try to get better sleep. Convinced me. Go with these 2 studies. Go.
Okay, so first of all, I already picture that you're a 17-year-old kid because you are my son.
Wow.
You are my youngest son.
That's just disrespect at the highest level. But that's okay. Let's move on.
Okay, so study number 1. I'm going to convince you. Chronic lack of sleep is associated with increased sports injuries in adolescent athletes. Okay, so if you're 17, you are an adolescent athlete. Let's say you're a basketball player. Okay, so because we all know right now you're not an athlete, you have almost 0 bounce. I'm sorry for the disrespect, Kevin. I don't know.
It's okay. He's coming at me today, but it's all right. I got some stuff for him later.
Multivariate analysis showed that hours of sleep per night and the grade in school were the best independent predictors of injury. Athletes who slept on average less than 8 hours per night were 1.7 times more likely to have an injury compared with athletes who slept for more than 8 hours. So if you're getting less than 8 hours of sleep, you're already 1.7 times more likely to get an injury than I am.
So basically what you're telling me is I'm like twice as likely to get injured.
Yeah, pretty much.
If I don't get more than 8 hours of sleep.
Correct.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I get 6 every single night.
Is that actual?
Night. That's actual, and that was back in high school.
Okay, yeah. So you're way more. You're at a greater risk than I am.
Right, but I thought that was okay. So now, 17-year-olds, anybody listening now you know 6 hours of sleep is not okay.
Yeah, so the conclusion of that study, sleep deprivation and increasing grade in school appear to be associated with injuries in adolescent athletic population. Encouraging young athletes to get optimal amounts of sleep may help protect them against athletic injuries. Moving on to study number 2.
8 hours of sleep is not hard to get, by the way, especially for a high school student. I mean, I feel like, I understand, I get it, but I mean, thinking back on it, I know you're probably playing video games. 2K players out there, hit me up on 2K. I play 2K as well because I'm not an athlete anymore. I have to live through a video game. But regardless, 8 hours is not hard.
It's not.
It's just not.
It's doable.
It is doable. It's doable.
The sad truth is that some athletes out there who do a lot. The more you do, the more sleep you're going to need.
Yeah, makes sense.
And if you're growing, let's say you're going through puberty, if you're 15, 16, 17, you're going to need more sleep. Look at babies. Babies sleep all the time. Little kids take naps all the time. It's because they are growing.
Yeah.
If you're doing these workouts and you're going through puberty, or even if you're older and you're going through these workouts and your muscles are growing and your body's adapting, you're going to need more sleep.
Agreed.
Anyways, study number 2, sleep restriction impairs maximal jump performance and alters lower extremity joint coordination variability in elite athletes. So let's just talk about everybody out there who cares about their vertical jump. Let's say you are a 17-year-old athlete, you're trying to dunk, and you care about increasing your vertical jump. Participants restricted, meaning the people that are going through this study whose sleep was restricted, they restricted the reported total sleep time from 7.4 hours per night to 4 hours per night. And I know that's very drastic, but sadly, there are some athletes out there who are only getting 4 hours of sleep per night because they're up beating Kevin at 2K. Go to sleep.
You keep coming at me, dude. I'm telling you, man. Later in this podcast, we're gonna have problems, and you're not gonna like it. And I cannot wait. Tune in.
All right. So the conclusions: sleep restriction for 3 days decreased maximal jump performance. Sleep restriction increased coordination variability and was associated with greater impairment in psychomotor response time in elite athletes. So basically, your vertical jump is going to be going down. It's going to be less. You're not going to be able to jump as high with less sleep. And your coordination, your reaction time, all of that is going to be off.
Interesting. So you're telling me that like your motor skills, maybe your neurological ability to learn things, to perform at your highest level. You're talking about all those things combined into one will come down.
Correct. And you have to remember that basketball is a skill sport. Think about a beautiful looking finger roll. Kevin never had a good finger roll, but I did. So Kevin's finger roll, if I didn't get enough sleep, my finger roll would start to look like Kevin's. It would just be, I'd be missing open layups. I'd be smoking layups, as they call it. Kevin, you wouldn't know that because you don't play basketball anymore.
What's a finger roll?
All right, relax.
Right.
So just understand that basketball is a skill sport. And if you don't get enough sleep, those neural pathways will not function as optimally and as efficiently as you need them to. That's it for these 2 studies. Did I convince you?
Yes, Nathanael. You convinced me to a point to where I like when you explain things, because before I even ask you questions about it, you explain them in a way to where people understand. And I don't know if that's because you actually coach in real life, because you do, and you have people skills or whatever it is, but you understand that if I'm literally a 17-year-old kid sitting in front of you, I'm not going to know how, I'm not going to be able to interpret that like you just did. So thank you. I appreciate it. I would recommend to all you athletes out there, regardless of your age, get your sleep right. Because in my personal opinion, even though I'm not an athlete, at this point in my life, I'm still trying to take so much information in that my brain has improved with more sleep. I've finally gotten my sleep schedule down right now. I'm not getting 8 hours of sleep. I'm getting somewhere in between 6 and 8. But yes, you convinced me, and I appreciate it, brother.
Okay, great. I'm glad that I convinced you. And this is a side note. This doesn't have much to do with the podcast, but I would like to tell a story because you made me think of this when you say that I have a good ability to explain things so that people understand. I think that this comes from coaching, but also teaching. And I want to tell a story for all the coaches out there because this is very important. So you know that the school that I worked at was an alternative school, meaning that when kids got kicked out of their normal school, they came to my school. So my school was filled with a bunch of kids who, in quotes, had bad behavior, right? They're not bad kids, but whatever they did, they got kicked out of their normal school, and now they come to my school. They see me, I am the gym teacher, and they get crossed, right, as we talked about in the first episode.
Yeah.
But this is my point. One day, I don't even remember what I was trying to teach the kid to do. Kid's in like the 8th grade, and I'm trying to teach him to do something, and he's not getting it. And I looked at him, and I'm like, dude, why are you not doing this right? And excuse my language, if there's any children listening, get them out of the room. But he said, motherfucker, you ain't teaching it right. And I thought to myself, I'm probably not teaching it in a way that this kid understands.
Yeah.
So it's not his fault that he's not understanding. Coaches, it's not your players' fault if they don't do what you tell them to do. It's your fault. Take responsibility as the leader. You have to explain it better. You have to rep it out more. You have to continue to explain it and teach it in a way that they will understand.
Okay, so real quick, awesome story. I love that. But I have also a story to tell you as well. So it's funny that you say that because in police work, in my opinion, it's all about the way you talk to people. It's your person skills. I've always kind of, operated on the notion of I try to respect everybody until they give me reason to not respect them. But at the same time, I feel like, growing up in the city that I work for and the people that I was around my entire life, I understand that everybody has a certain way that they communicate with people, a certain way that they learn. And you can't just go around talking to everybody the same way because not everybody responds the same way. So that is 100% accurate, not just with coaching, but in everyday life. Keep in mind that not everybody comes from the same background. So the point I'm trying to make is everybody comes from different backgrounds. Okay, it's just the way that you have to interact with certain different people from different demographics, different areas and stuff. And regardless if you're coaching, regardless of what you're doing, I think that you should keep that in mind. Everybody learns and everybody communicates differently. Just look at who they are on the surface. Look at how they're, talking, how they're conversating and stuff, and then just use your common sense and talk to them that way. Because I'm sure you have a lot of different types of athletes out there. There's no way you're going to tell me that one kid learns like the next every single time.
No, definitely not.
Exactly.
And as a coach, you have to understand, as you just said, you can't talk to the same kid. You can't talk the same way to each player on your team.
Right.
If I might be able to yell at one kid and he just responds and that's what he responds to. But then I yell at another kid and he just completely shuts down and he doesn't want to play anymore.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, right.
So as Phil Jackson said, I think it was Phil Jackson, about Dennis Rodman, he said, you can't put a saddle on a Mustang. So
Dennis Rodman, yeah, he was wild, man.
Right, yeah.
Wild.
So, don't try to put a saddle on a Mustang. Everyone is different. Moving on, because we have a lot more. This podcast is going to be long, but I'm here for it. Obviously, I'm here for it, but I hope you are here for it. And hopefully we drop some more gold the rest of this podcast, but we're going to continue to talk about sleep. Remember, we are talking about the 5 tips, for lack of a better term, to optimize your recovery as much as possible. Right now, we are on tip number 1, optimize your sleep. We talked about stop using an alarm. The next thing is stop looking at screens before we go to bed. And I have 2 studies to reference here. But stop looking at screens before you go to bed. Screens like television, laptops, iPads, phones, these emit off a blue light that suppresses your melatonin and makes it harder for you to get to sleep.
How long would you say before sleep should you take a break from blue light?
I would say an hour before you go to bed, stop looking at all screens. Yeah. And if you really want to do something better with your time, this is a perfect time to do something else, to put a different habit in place other than looking at screens, watching TV, scrolling through Instagram, TikTok, whatever. So it might be doing some light mobility work. It might be reading a book. It could be anything, but this is a great time, an hour before bed, for you to decompress, de-stress, and put in place a different habit that is going to help you get better sleep and improve your life overall.
Right, and I concur with that because I actually used to be an avid phone user before I used to go to sleep, and now I'm not. I try to put my phone, on the charger like an hour and a half before I go to sleep. Now I like to shower and stuff, but essentially Nathanael told me that a while ago, and I took that and I ran with it. And I promise you that is a 100% proven fact. I'm telling you that I literally lived by that. And I was like, I'm going to try it. and it worked. Okay, I have a routine, and I'm able to fall asleep a lot quicker than I used to. And one thing that I noticed is my eyes were like they needed a break. I would like try to like fall asleep right after, looking at my phone, watching some cool clips, whatever. And I'd be like, okay, it's time to go to sleep. And then I'd close my eyes and they would like be moving, that fast twitching.
Right.
And I couldn't get to sleep. So that's when I noticed it and I took Nate's advice and it works.
Right. So my girlfriend, Sam, she still scroll, and I don't care what she does. I've said it so many times. I tell her not to do this, but she scrolls through TikTok right before she goes to bed. And she always says to me, well, that's not fair. You fall asleep right away. As soon as your head hits the pillow, you just fall asleep.
Right.
I can't fall asleep. So, that's why I'm on TikTok. And I would say it's probably because you're on TikTok that you can't fall asleep.
Yeah, your sleep routine. Yeah.
Right. So my routine, what I do is an hour before I go to bed, I put on my blue light blocking glasses because I need to block out her TikTok, sadly. But then I shower and I, brush my teeth, get ready for bed, and then I set up my next day. So what I actually do is I go through my next day, and I think this is a big tip for anybody out there listening, is Jim Rohn, the great motivational speaker, said, you need to do your days twice, once in your mind and then once in real life. So I go through my day the night before. I think about what I'm going to wear. I look at my, what's my workout for tomorrow? Or me and Kevin and I recording a podcast. What am I going to do tomorrow? And I lay down, I visualize what I'm going to do tomorrow. So I already go through my day. And then when I wake up the next morning, I've already done all this in my mind. So I know exactly what I'm going to do. And this is another thing about your goals. If you have goals and you don't know what you should be doing right now to achieve your goals, then you don't have enough clarity on your goals. So I know as soon as I wake up, you're going to drink a greens drink. Then you're going to take a cold shower. Then you're going to take Cairo for a walk. Then you're going to do your workout. Then you're going to clean the gut litter and do all these little miscellaneous. Then you're going to answer your athletes. Then you're going to work on whatever important things you have for that day. I understand that. So that's just a little side note.
Right.
My point was, the whole point of this is to stop looking at screens before you go to bed. So the studies that I have on this, number one, evening use of light-emitting e-readers, so like a Kindle, negatively affects sleep, circadian rhythm, and next morning alertness. So essentially, you have a harder time getting to sleep, you get less quality sleep, and you are less alert the next morning. And it goes on to say, overall, we found that the use of portable light-emitting devices immediately before bedtime has biological effects that may perpetuate sleep deficiency and disrupt circadian rhythms, both of which can have adverse impacts on performance, health, and safety. So if that doesn't convince you right there to stop looking at screens before you go to bed, and it's not just Kindles and e-readers, this applies for televisions, laptops, phones, etc.
Yeah. And, like my kids love to fall asleep before. I don't understand it. I don't know if kids are the same way. I would love to find out if kids were the same way, like at what age that changes. But I've noticed that kids really doesn't have an impact on them whenever, I don't know what age, like I said, it starts at, but they'll watch TV until they go to sleep, and then, the sleep timer goes off, whatever, goes off, and they're perfectly fine the next day. It's like, but again, it might just be that age. So I don't know if it's age dependent, but I'd be very curious to find out.
I don't think it's age dependent. Honestly, I think that if they didn't do that, I think it still applies to them.
Really? Yeah.
I just think that because they're kids, they just have all the energy in the world. But I still think it would be a good idea if the kids didn't watch that before bed. Now, I'm not a parent. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not here to tell you don't let your kids watch stuff before bed. We're just here giving you the studies and the information. So, yep.
Right. So, but I am a parent, and I'm sorry, you guys, my kids can blame Uncle Nate for this one. No more TV or tablets or anything an hour before bed.
They should be thanking me.
Well,
I deserve
definitely
Christmas
won't
cards.
be thanking you.
I deserve birthday cards. I deserve Godfather cards.
I'm telling them, and I'm going to show them this video on replay every single time they ask me, Dad, why can't I watch TV before I go to bed? Well, Uncle Nate said this is why, and also the research shows it's a fact. So there it is.
I'm fine with it because when they're in high school, they're going to be thanking me because they have more bounce. than everybody
They
else.
have more balance.
And they are more athletic. So.
Well, yeah, when they're well rested.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah. Anyways, one more study on this one. This is more along the lines of social media use before bed. So, Sam, if you are listening to this one, stop watching TikTok right next to me. By the way, side note, I don't share a blanket with my girlfriend.
Me neither.
Because she just rolls and it
Me
just
neither.
comes up like...
Dude, me neither.
Yeah. Like...
That has to be a common thing nowadays. It has to be. Because my body temperature doesn't match up with, I feel like, anybody else's body temperature. And I sleep very hot. Like, I'll sweat if I wear anything outside of, like, if it's not cold and I don't have a blanket on, dude, I'm sweating.
Right. I take my sleep very seriously. We'll talk about me taping my mouth shut at sleep.
I'm going to make fun of Nate later on for taping his mouth shut because I am actually here to debunk the mouth taping.
I can't wait because
I'm debunking it.
Okay. Well, tell that to Jarrett et al. 2008.
Oh, I will.
All right. Anyways, that was just a made-up study, but I do have studies for that. Last study, very quickly, and then we will move on. Social media use before bed and sleep disturbance among young adults in the United States, a nationally represented study. We assessed 1,763 U.S. young adults, ages 19 to 32. Participants estimated to what extent they use social media in the 30 minutes before they go to bed. The results were, compared with those who rarely or very rarely check social media in the 30 minutes before bed, those who often or very often check social media at that time had an adjusted odds ratio of 1.62 for increased sleep disturbance. Conclusions. Social media use in the 30 minutes before bed is independently associated with disturbed sleep among young adults. Samantha, stop looking at TikTok right next to me before we go to bed.
Here's why. Here's why I think that's true. Just to put that kind of in layman's terms, right? Think about like what's going through your mind when you're watching these videos, when you're checking social media. Like me, for example, I'm always checking YouTube, Nate's channel, this, that, and the other. So if I'm checking that right before I go to sleep, what am I doing? I'm worrying myself. I'm stressing myself out. So me personally, I have a planner. And everything that I need to do the next day, I write down in that planner. I got this idea from Matthew McConaughey, so shout out to him. He said, because he has a family, he has everything going on, he realized that he went to bed thinking about everything he had to do the next day. Instead, if you write that down and you know that you're not going to forget that stuff, you can push that stuff out of your mind an hour before you go to bed, write it down in your planner, everything you need to do the next day, and then you have it right there in front of you. And then in the morning, make it part of your routine to check your planner. Now, I know it's not a popular decision. Men, I'm talking to you out there. Boys, I'm talking to you. For guys, for males to have planners, but I am telling you it is life-changing. Life-changing. But not to get too far off the social media thing. It just makes so much sense to me. It just makes so much sense. I mean, not checking social media, not having to worry yourself, stress yourself out, blah, blah, blah. I definitely concur, and I would say I approve not checking social media. And I would even extend it out to an hour. An hour. Not even 30 minutes like that said, an hour, because it goes to the whole blue light thing.
Right. So that's our entire point of this one. 60 minutes, 1 hour before you go to sleep. Stop looking at all screens and put in some positive habit that is going to make your life better, whether it's writing down in your planner what you're going to do the next day, whether it's visualizing your goals or visualizing your next day in general, whether it's reading a book, whether it's doing some light mobility or a light workout, whatever it might be, replace that last hour of your day. Stop looking at screens and do something positive instead.
Yeah, and also side note, did you know a lot of anxiety comes from thinking and worrying about what's going on the next day right before you're about to go to sleep? That's actually a fact. I don't know where I read it. It was a research study, I think maybe coming out of some university or some sort, and I'll find it and I'll maybe put it on the screen. But essentially, you can't be stressing yourself out before you go to bed. That's just the answer. That's just the answer. Do not stress yourself out, because guess what? The whole next day, you have the whole day to worry about your life. Why worry about it before you're going to sleep?
Right. And I would add to that if you write it down in your planner
Yes.
and you visualize your next day, you're not going to have that anxiety.
Right.
I'm not speaking for everybody, but it's definitely going to decrease that thinking right before bed because you've already
decompressing.
Yes, you've got it out of your mind.
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
right. Cool. So let's move on to the next point. We're still on sleep, still on tip number 1. The next point about sleep is to stop drinking caffeine after 12 o'clock noon and after workouts, but I'll talk about that next. So stop drinking caffeine after 12 o'clock noon. Now, 12 o'clock noon is not set in stone. However, caffeine has a 5 or 6 hour half-life, meaning that if you drink 200 milligrams of caffeine at 2 p.m., 6 hours later at 8 p.m., 100 milligrams of caffeine is still circulating through your system. And I know there are people who can drink coffee and go right to bed, but it's just like your kids watching TV right before bed. Some people can do it. It's still going to be better if you don't do it. It's still going to be more optimal if you don't drink caffeine after. I just set that rule for myself. After 12 o'clock noon, I do not drink caffeine.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
One other point is that after your workout, you don't want to drink caffeine. So before your workout, cool. If you want an energy drink, if you want some coffee, if you want to use pre-workout, I have nothing wrong with that. I would say that try not to use it every single day before every single workout because eventually it stops becoming performance enhancing because your body gets used to it. So maybe use it before your hardest workouts. Maybe you have leg days on Tuesday, Friday, or whatever it might be. Use caffeine before your hardest workouts for that week so that it has more of an effect. But the reason that you don't want to drink caffeine directly after your workout is because you're supposed to be shifting your body into the parasympathetic rest and digest nervous system. So if you just drink caffeine and get yourself all wired up right after your workout, that's doing the opposite effect of what we want.
Yeah, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense.
So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because we've already spent tons of time on sleep. I do want to talk about a few other things.
Okay.
I do tape my mouth shut. Should we talk about this right now or should we talk about it? I have point number 4 is do your deep breathing sneak peek.
And that's fine. Tell them about that. But in my segment of On the Spot, I'm going to bring it up.
All right. So
we're going to talk about it.
Well, let's talk about it very quickly. So
okay.
I personally tape my mouth shut every single night, and the excuses are going to start coming out for people again. Valid excuses at that because some people do have a blocked up nose, right? So they cannot breathe through their nose. So if they tape their mouth shut, they will literally pass out and die.
Right.
So don't do that. But for myself, I tape my mouth shut every single night to force myself to breathe through my nose because nose breathing has been shown to promote more recovery than mouth breathing.
I agree with that, and I have no problem with that. But I will debunk taping the mouth shut, but I will not debunk nose breathing because I do agree with that.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Can't wait for you to debunk that.
You guys are going to love it.
Anyways.
You're even going to love it.
I hope so. So for the people out there who can't breathe through their nose, that is a very valid excuse. If you can't breathe through your nose, you can't breathe through your nose. However, there are things that you can do to help you breathe through your nose. For me, I couldn't breathe through my nose for a huge period of my life. And the reason was allergies. But I was able to go get allergy shots. They actually pricked me in my back with like 40.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't even know this happened, so this is new to me. So please, continue.
Okay, so I had allergies.
I know you had allergies.
Right.
But
I was a chronic mouth breather. I could not breathe through my nose. It was actually pretty gross. Like
you guys should have heard this man breathing back in high school. He was like,
I was not like that.
that's how he slept. I used to sleep on the couch, and I would yell at him. I'd actually go upstairs and hit him with a pillow. But continue. I'm sorry.
So, I would actually, it got so bad to where like I would be eating and I would need to like take a break in between like bites to actually breathe through my mouth with food still in my mouth. It was gross.
Could you imagine?
It sucked. It honestly, but
so here you are just eating and then you're just like,
if you can't breathe through your nose, there are things that you can do. You need to find out why you can't breathe through your nose because you can't go the rest of your life not being able to breathe through your nose.
it's not natural, I feel like.
You can't do that. You can't just accept it.
right.
I'm a mouth breather, always been, always will be. You can't accept that.
Yeah.
So figure out the reason why you can't breathe through your nose. Is it allergies? Is it a deviated septum? Is it just, are you sick? Like, why can't you breathe through your nose? And then go and figure that out. Go to the doctor and try to get that fixed. Do not accept that you just can't breathe through your nose for the rest of your life.
Right.
For me, right now, like, so I got allergy shots. They pricked me in my back with like 40 different things that I might be allergic to, you know, ragweed, dogs, cats, this, that, and the other. And based on the diameter of the little needle thing, they saw what I was most allergic to, right? It was a pretty weird process. But
sounds nuts.
they concocted this formula of all of
pictures?
this stuff. I don't. I might actually. I don't know. But they concocted this formula of all of this stuff that I was allergic to. And they would actually, I would go 3 times per week for 6 months. Imagine that process. I would drive like 30 minutes, 3 times a week for 6 months to get injected with this formula of everything that I was allergic to so that my body got used to all of those things that I was allergic to, and it got rid of my allergies, and now I can breathe through my nose.
So you did something about it.
Right. You do something about it.
Yeah.
Deviated septum, go get nose surgery.
I didn't know this, guys. That's interesting. I didn't even know that was an option.
There's a lot of things you're finding out about me on this podcast.
I know.
That's why it's great we're doing it.
I love it.
Right. So that's the last thing that I'm going to say about this. I tape my mouth shut every single night. I use Ariza medical tape. A couple questions that everybody has is, does it hurt? Doesn't it? Like, I almost used duct tape the first time I heard this. And Sam was like, why are you going to use duct tape? And I'm like, well, what else should I use? And she was like, use your brain. I'm sure there's something else that you can use. I was like, all right, let me look this up. And I found medical tape, like surgical tape, that if you put it on, it keeps your mouth tape shut. But if you peel it off, it's just like medical surgical tape. It does not hurt, doesn't rip my facial hair, nothing like that.
That's the stuff they gave me right after my surgery, so I'm not surprised, actually.
Right. So,
yeah.
anyways, that is it for sleep. I know we spent a long time on that. We'll try to move quick on these next segments.
It's important, though.
Right. It's
very important.
That's why I put it number 1. It is the most important. It is the most important for your recovery. So remember, this podcast is about 5 tips for you to optimize your recovery. Tip number 1 is optimize sleep. And within sleep, we're going to stop using an alarm if you can. I'll just move past that. Stop looking at screens an hour before bed. Stop drinking caffeine after 12 o'clock noon, or set a time for yourself. And then tape your mouth shut before you go to bed if you can. If you can breathe through your nose. If you can't breathe through your nose, do something about that. Don't accept it. Moving on to tip number 2, to optimize your recovery. You need to optimize your nutrition. And I know most of you out there probably know what I'm about to say, but protein is the main macronutrient responsible for muscle recovery and recovery in general. So especially for those of you out there who are working out, you need more protein than the average individual. You need more protein than a sedentary individual like Kevin. You need more protein than somebody who doesn't work out. So especially if you play basketball, you do workouts, you do your skills training, you do conditioning with your team, whatever it might be, you're going to need more protein than the average person. Now, there are some myths that surround that. I think, do you have a section on myths later?
I do, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Right, so I won't talk about that right now.
Okay.
But for everybody out there wondering, you need 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. That's protein. So, Kevin, how much do you weigh?
About 195.
195. So you would need 195 grams of protein every single day to optimize your recovery. Now you could do 0.8, so you might not need as much as that. And you're not going to need as much anyways because you don't really work out. But if you did work out,
right. I get a lot of protein from meals and stuff too. I mean, that's not the takeaway. Like if I was working out religiously,
you got to start.
You got
to start.
I can't right now because of my shoulder injury. Right.
All right.
Right.
Okay.
But
so I apologize for coming at you so hard because I actually forgot.
Right. This man forgot I was in a motorcycle accident while I was working.
Bro, you could do calf raises, bro. You ain't doing nothing.
Bro.
You can do calf raises.
I understand I could do calf raises, but I don't want to do calf raises.
Wow.
Okay. I would like to get just stronger in general.
Yeah. Strengthen your calves.
Eventually.
How can you consider yourself a leader of the Action Army.
Bro, my legs are already big.
Oh my goodness, bro.
My legs are already big. They're already strong. My upper body, obviously, I mean, I got some work to do. That's what I want to do, but I can't right now because I'm not allowed. I'm suffering from an injury, Nate. Unbelievable.
I'm going to ask you.
Go ahead.
Did you guys just hear all of those excuses?
What do you mean?
Bro.
I cannot. Listen,
there are certain things that you can do. I sprained my ankle. It doesn't mean
upper body.
Okay. You have limbs. You have legs.
Yeah, just legs then.
Okay.
And maybe abs if I wanted to.
Okay. That's fine.
All right. But what if I don't want to? That's not an excuse. I feel like it's a decision. Listen. I'm taking action in other ways in my life. School, this, with you, everything. I don't want to hear it. I'm allowed to not work out, okay? I'm almost 30 years old. How old are you?
I'm 31.
I knew that already. I'm not a bad friend, okay? But the point is that I have other things going. I'm taking action in other ways in my life. Priorities are a big thing in my life, and I would love to go to the gym and start working out. But priority-wise, it's not on my list. It's just not. I have a lot of priorities, and I take action on those priorities. But going to the gym isn't. So that's not an excuse, Nate. It's just not my priority like it is yours and probably all the listeners out there. Sorry, guys, but I'm just not there.
Okay, so when is it going to become your priority?
When
it can't be.
I want it to be.
You can't just go the rest of your life not working.
No, you're right. You're right. 100%. You're right. Because I am actually a firm believer in if you keep your body going, keep your body moving. Your mom's a perfect example. She retired not too long ago, and by saying that I mean like less than 10 years ago. So I feel like that's pretty soon, I guess. It was less than 5 years ago, actually, right?
Yeah, pretty recent.
Yeah, pretty recent, right? And Nate's mom is the hardest working retired woman I've ever met in my life, and here's why. She keeps her house perfect, and not only that, but she does all the renovations herself. She does all these things, all this woodwork, all this gardening. She keeps herself busy, and I can promise you that woman is probably going to live till she's 100 plus. Because she's keeping her body going. She's not slowing down. She's not, I'm just going to sit on the couch for the rest of my life, whatever. So I do firmly believe in that. But that's not to say that I'm not active either, because I'm still active. I just don't work out. So yes, I will eventually. I agree. But right now, it's not on my priorities.
All right.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Are you sure?
I'm sure you just.
I just don't want to hear about it again.
You just can't go the rest of your life not training.
No, I know.
Okay.
I know.
You used to train all the time,
dude. I want to start playing basketball again.
Right. All right.
I'm serious.
All right.
Can you I'll do the programs. I've never done any of his programs. I've never done any of your programs thus far.
I could get you dunking 100%.
Right.
Because you're honestly decently athletic.
Right.
You're not some short, stocky dude
yeah.
who with no bounce.
Right.
You're just a tall, lanky dude with no bounce.
Right. And I haven't, really done anything athletic, and I'm not even going to answer that.
All right, let's move on. So just know that you need 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, especially if you're doing a lot of workouts and training. You're going to need more protein than someone who is not doing a lot of workouts and training. All right, anyways, we went way too far off track with that one, but the whole point of that, believe it or not, was to say that you need 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, especially if you work out, especially if you train, especially if you're a basketball player who's very active. You're going to need more protein than someone who is not very active. Next, carbohydrates are fast twitch fuel. For basketball, for vertical jump training, understand that carbohydrates are fast twitch fuel. And we're talking about simple carbohydrates, but mainly complex carbohydrates like oats, pasta, whole grain bread, sweet potatoes, etc., etc. Simple carbs would be like fruit, bananas, strawberries, blueberries, all the fruits.
Gotcha.
So
all the fruits.
You can eat all the fruits.
Carbs.
I just wanted to talk about that very quickly, and then healthy fats in moderation. So you want unsaturated fats. That's going to be your avocado, your almonds, your peanuts, your almond butter, your peanut butter, et cetera, your healthy oils. But just understand that when it comes to nutrition, there are 3 macronutrients: proteins, fats, carbohydrates. You have to have all these in check. Proteins are definitely the most influential when it comes to recovery, but that's really all I have about nutrition. I know that was way faster than sleep, but that is tip number 2. You need to optimize your nutrition as an athlete. I'm going to talk about supplements a little bit later. We could put that in that nutrition category, but I'm going to put it in a different category. So optimize your nutrition. That is tip number 2 in the 5 tips to optimize your recovery as an athlete. Number 1 was sleep. Number 2 is optimize your nutrition. Number 3, this is a very big one. You need to decrease stress. Stress is a killer of gains. If you are very stressed out, I promise, if you're stressing, you're not in that parasympathetic rest and digest state. So you need to decrease stress, whether that is meditation, whether that's deep breathing, whether that's going for a walk outside. Now, if you're walking through New York City, it's obviously going to be different than going for a walk in the park next to the river or the stream. So do what you need to do. Do something fun. Do things that you enjoy. Quit your job. That's a big one. I'm not telling you to quit your job, but I am telling you, if you don't like what you do every single day, if you wake up and you hate going to work, you need to work to get a different job, whether it's building your own business, whether it's looking and interviewing at other places. But that's a big one. Too many people, remember, we're not here to say weak shit. Too many people do what they don't like to do every single day. And there's some other job out there, some other occupation, some other career that you would probably like to do more.
Fact. Just straight facts. I couldn't agree with you more. I'm not going to elaborate into that. However, I will tell you that I couldn't agree more with you.
All right. So now I do want you to understand, if you care about my opinion at all, which if you're still listening, you probably care a little bit. But let's say that you want to build your own business. As I stated before, and I've stated many times, I am not a fan of burning the ships at the shore and just quitting your job and just trying to make it. You still have to pay your bills. So I understand that there's some people out there who might not like what they are doing right now. They can't just quit because they have bills to pay. They might have children. They have the family that you have to provide for. So in that case, I would say work on nights and weekends or whatever free time you have to build that business or to gain those skills so that you can do something else, so that you don't hate your job, so that you're not stressed every day, so that your gains aren't killed.
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to touch on that is if you are still in high school, please take it from me and Nate, enjoy the moments of being a kid. You know, you may think that you are grown up in high school, but just enjoy being a kid. You know, don't think about it, but think about your future. Because if you want to do what Nathanael just said, you have to think about that years in advance. You have to start thinking about your future. Now, don't stress out about it, but what that will do is it'll decrease your stress levels when you are an adult. If you're starting to make those decisions early, well, at least thinking about them and having early goals, don't stress out about them. Again, you have plenty of time, but at least start thinking about them. That way, decrease your stress later on down the road.
Right. I agree. And I do want to point out that tip number 3 is decrease your stress. But if you do tips number 1 and 2 and you optimize your sleep and optimize your nutrition, you are going to decrease a lot of that stress. True. Just by doing those 2.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that I do want to say about stress is that there are certain things that you can do to increase your stress threshold. So there are things that you can do to increase the amount of stress that you can take before you break and you freak out. And some people never break. Some people never freak out. Some people never have a meltdown. Some people do. There are things that you can do to be able to handle more stress. So when you get that extra homework, so that when you got a flat tire, so that when things happen, because life is going to happen, there are things that you can do to increase that stress threshold so that you can deal with life in a better way and it really won't affect you that much. Number 1 is meditation. and deep breathing. And this isn't for everybody, but for me, all I do is 10 minutes a day. And I do it after my workouts where I just lay down on the couch, I close my eyes, and I just focus on my breathing for 5 minutes. And then after that, I just visualize my goals. And that is what I consider meditation. Some people do it for longer. I don't really have time to do it longer, and 10 minutes works for me. Cold showers are a good one because among all of the benefits that you get from cold showers, what cold showers also do is teach you to relax under stress. If you jump in that cold water and you're like, oh my God, it's freezing. Oh my God, I'm going to die. You teach your body, no, I'm okay. And you start to do deep breathing in the cold shower. And you start to, when that cold water hits you, you teach yourself to relax so that when you pop your tire on a nail, it's okay. These things happen to me. I prepare myself for that. I'm able to relax in these stressful situations.
That is exactly what I was talking about when it comes to Nate being able to explain things in a way that makes sense. Okay. Before he talked about cold showers, we had just talked about how I don't believe in cold showers. However, with him just giving an example and why the cold shower is beneficial, think about it like this, okay? If you are in a situation where you're just driving down the road, hanging out, minding your own business, listening to your favorite, Drake song, 2 Chainz, whatever it is.
2 Chainz, no, he didn't.
What do the kids listen to nowadays?
Lil Baby.
All right, Lil Baby. Things like I listen to Lil Baby too. I'm gonna be honest. But anyway, regardless, think about you're just doing that, and then all of a sudden, bam, car accident or tire pops. Say you're on the highway, tire pops. You start swerving out of control, this, that, and the other. Your brain is going to go from 0 to 100 very quickly. And I don't know if you guys know this out there, but if you do that and you're not used to that stressful kind of environment, your body is going to shut down. You're going to shut down and you're going to have no control over your body, no anything. Now, that is not the most stressful situation you could put yourself in. I'm just trying to give you an example because as a police officer, we are put in those stressful situations as we are training because imagine as a police officer, you're patrolling and then all of a sudden something happens and you got to go from 0 to 100 real quick. Well, we are taught to always be in that yellow zone to where you're not going from 0 to 100 real quick. You're always kind of prepared. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So essentially what I'm trying to say is by taking that cold shower, you're forcing your body to get used to going from 0 to 100 real quick. And then honestly, I see all the benefits in the world. All the benefits in the world. I completely understand where you're coming from. And I promise you guys, 5 minutes ago, I just said, I don't believe in cold showers. And here we are now. So thank you, Nate. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I would say that police officers should be the ones doing cold showers.
Yes.
Everybody should do them, but that should be like protocol.
Well, we practice. There's other things that we do, to put ourselves. So we don't necessarily need that. But for people at home, everyday people, that aren't practicing those things, aren't training for those things year round, that's a perfect thing to do. Perfect.
Right.
You don't even, it doesn't have to even be long, I feel like. Just hop right in and out, try to learn to control that nerve that, gets your body going. I don't know, what do you know the, actual term for it? Like why does your body just react like that all of a sudden? Like when you get into the cold shower, like it's almost like,
it's that fight or flight.
Right. Right.
It's just built into human beings biologically that, thousands of years ago when a saber-toothed tiger popped out, that fight or flight comes in. Either you fight or you flight or you die.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So
yeah. Okay.
But for anybody out there who cares, this is what I do for cold showers. Just to wrap up the part on decreasing stress. So a few years ago, I used to do cold showers every single day. I did no hot water for 2 years straight. Even when I would wash my hands in hot water and I would think that I was cheating, but I would just put it on as cold as it goes and I would take my cold shower and that was that. Now what I do is I get in the hot water and then at the end I do about 2 minutes of cold water. And that's worked just fine. Maybe I'll go back to doing full years of cold showers, but I think that getting it hot, washing my body and then, finishing with cold. I think that does just as well too for the purpose that I want to use cold showers.
Yeah, you're torturing yourself. You're like, hey, body, here's some nice warm water. And then all of a sudden you're all clean, all ready to go. And then bam, cold water. Like, what do you, like, that dude, like.
I mean, it's a way better way to wake yourself up than caffeine.
That is true.
As well.
That is very true. You're thinking, okay, you do that in the morning.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, so moving on. That is number 3. Number 1 was optimize your sleep. Number 2, optimize nutrition. Number 3, decrease your stress because stress is a killer of gains, I promise. Number 4, do your deep breathing. Do your deep breathing. I like to do my deep breathing right after my workout because the quicker that you can shift yourself into that parasympathetic state, the quicker you start recovering. And I actually have a couple studies that I want to bring up on this, and just a passage from Cal Dietz. He's a trainer. You probably don't know Cal Dietz, Kevin, but he wrote the book Triphasic Training. He's a strength and performance coach at the University of Minnesota, and I just want to read a small passage from his book Triphasic Training. He says, slow, deep breathing has been shown to induce a calming effect on the body, decreasing everything from blood pressure to stress. Deep voluntary belly breathing also has been shown to shift the nervous system from sympathetic dominance to parasympathetic dominance. The neural response to training is well documented with an excitatory effect occurring in response to a stressor. Therefore, the key to recovery is being able to switch as soon as possible from the catabolic state brought on by training into a more anabolic state. So catabolic is like breakdown, and then anabolic you just think of as building up.
Gotcha.
And this is the last part. He goes on to say, I'd contend that taking 5 to 10 minutes at the end of a training session to include something as simple as deep belly breathing can have a huge impact on future training sessions and recovery.
In which you have in almost all of your trainings. So
correct.
You already knew that well before this.
Right. So in all of my workouts, if you buy one of my workout programs like Beyond the Rim 2, or honestly, any of them, Beyond the Rim 1, the free one, just comment jump on one of my YouTube videos and I will send you that program for free. But I have deep belly breathing for 5 to 10 minutes after every single workout. So what I like to do is drink my protein shake, eat some simple carbs like a banana, some blueberries, and then I lay down and I do my 10 minutes of deep belly breathing through my nose. That is what I personally do, and that is what I recommend that you do to shift into that parasympathetic dominance and promote recovery.
Before you go to sleep? Or just in general?
That's directly after my workout.
After your workout. Okay,
you can do it at any time, but that is directly after my workout.
Right, okay, gotcha.
When you go to sleep, you're going to be doing that anyway, especially if you tape your mouth shut, Kevin.
We'll get to that more later, but essentially, I don't need the tape because I have enough discipline to keep my mouth shut while I'm sleeping. But I'll get more into that later. I don't want to hear about anything else. Go.
There's so much that I would love to say about that, but we'll move on and we'll talk about that later. Last study that I'm going to read, you guys are probably sick of hearing me read studies at this point. However, that is what this podcast is all about. We are giving you the science. But this is about deep breathing and why it helps you recover. Physiology of long pranayamic breathing. Pranayamic just means controlling your breath. So like in yoga, they teach you, breathe in for 5 seconds, hold it 5 seconds. It's just any controlled breath. You are deliberately controlling your breath. Physiology of long pranayamic breathing. Neural respiratory elements may provide a mechanism that explains how slow, deep breathing shifts the autonomic nervous system. And here's a summary. Pranayamic breathing, defined as manipulation of breath movement, has been shown to contribute to a physiological response characterized by the presence of decreased oxygen consumption, decreased heart rate, and decreased blood pressure, as well as increased theta wave amplitude in EEG recordings, increased parasympathetic activity, this is what we care about, accompanied by the experience of alertness and reinvigoration.
Well done.
Thanks.
Well done.
So basically, that just sums up everything that Cal Dietz just said in his book.
Yeah.
But slow, deep breathing promotes recovery by shifting you into parasympathetic dominance of the nervous system. That's it. So deep breathing and nose breathing is going to shift you into that recovery mode. So make sure that you do your deep breathing directly after your workout. Tip number 5, and the very last tip to optimize your recovery. Remember, tip number 1 is optimize your sleep. Tip number 2, optimize your nutrition. Tip number 3, decrease stress. Tip number 4, do your deep breathing, especially after your workout. Tip number 5 is to choose any of these recovery methods that make you feel more recovered. So, Kevin, we're not going to get too far into the science of all these different recovery methods because that deserves a whole podcast on its own. However, I want you to know out there that the placebo effect is very effective. It is very real. So chances are that if you think one of these things works to help you recover, it probably does because you believe it to be so. The mind is very powerful.
Placebo effect.
Right. So, number 1, stretching. We're not going to talk about whether or not stretching does help you improve your recovery. However, I would say that if you do some light stretching at the end of your workout and it gets you to calm down and relax, it probably does help you recover because it gets you to shift into that parasympathetic nervous system. So number 1, stretching. Number 2 is foam rolling. I think the same thing. I like to use foam rolling to increase my mobility right before I might do squats or my workouts or whatever, because there has been studies that have shown that doing foam rolling will help improve mobility for a small gap of time after you do your foam rolling. But for recovery, I would argue if you do it at the end of your workout, it would help you improve your recovery the same way that stretching does, not because of the method itself, but because you are sitting down and getting yourself to relax and calm down after your workout. So first one, stretching. Then we have foam rolling. Ice baths or cryotherapy or contrast therapy, where you do a cold tub, then a hot tub, then a cold tub, then a hot tub, or a cold pack, then a heating pad, cold pack, then a heating pad. Ice baths, they are shown to improve recovery, but not in a way that is going to cause adaptation. So ice baths are going to be great if you have, let's say, 2 back-to-back basketball games and you need to feel better before your next basketball game. Cryotherapy is going to be very similar. Contrast therapy is going to be very similar as well. So they're probably not going to cause an adaptation that is helping you recover past where you were before, but they are going to help you feel better. Massages or massage guns, those are going to be good to use. Red light therapy, that is going to be good to use. There's been some studies that come out on that. Supplements like protein. We talked about protein earlier in the optimized nutrition section, but protein is going to be very important. If you don't get all of your protein through actual whole foods, which I would say that you should try to get as much as possible through whole foods. And then if you need that extra supplementation, then use a protein supplement. Whey protein is going to be great directly after your workout because it gets into your muscles more quickly than food does, especially whey protein isolate. Glutamine, there's been some studies on that show that it helps decrease muscle soreness, and then compression boots like the NormaTec boots, et cetera, et cetera. So all of these recovery methods, if you believe them to work, they likely are you are likely going to feel better doing them, especially if you believe that they work. There's research on both sides of a lot of these. Some studies say that it has no effect. Some studies say that it has a big effect. For the NormaTec boots, I actually read a study on the NormaTec boots that said that the NormaTec boots had no effect on recovery. But when I went and I used the NormaTec boots, I personally felt way better after using them. So sometimes there are studies that come out that say this, that, or the other. However, if you feel better by doing any of these methods, I think you should do it. And you got to think, there's no downside to doing these. There's only upside. So that is the last tip. Tip number 5 is use any of these methods that make you feel more recovered. We have stretching, foam rolling, ice baths, cryotherapy, contrast therapy, massages or massage guns, red light therapy, supplements like protein and glutamine, and compression boots. Use all of those as necessary. And these have been 5 tips to optimize your recovery as an athlete. Optimize your sleep, optimize your nutrition, decrease your stress, do your deep breathing, especially after your workout, and then use any of those methods that you think might help you in your athletic journey.
Very well, very well. I liked it. I hope you guys learned something from those 5 tips. I know I definitely did. I know I learned some brand new things about Nathanael as well, and I hope you guys enjoyed those stories that he gave us.
Right. All right, so now moving on to the next segment. This will be the last segment of the podcast, but every single episode we like to end with On the Spot, hosted by yours truly, Kevin McCardle.
Are you ready, Nate?
I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
Action Army, are you ready? Of course you are. All right, this is On the Spot segment. I am hosting it. I appreciate Nate for giving me this opportunity. And we are going to start with, and you guessed it, the debunking of the mouth tape. Now, I already know what you're going to say, okay? But here's the thing. I believe in nose breathing while you're sleeping. I don't know if it's a natural thing for me or not, but I can almost 100% promise you, and I will literally I will record myself sleeping. I do not open my mouth when I'm sleeping. I don't, because I can naturally breathe out my nose. So I don't need the tape. So Nate thinks that everybody needs a tape. I'm telling you, you don't. If you breathe out of your nose naturally, bleep the tape. You know what I mean? You don't need the tape. You just don't need it. So because I use the tape. Here's what happened. I used the tape one time. First of all, my girlfriend Amanda, she literally laughed at me. Like, she made fun of me to the point to where I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to do this one night, see what happens. Cool, whatever, move on, right? Then I did it, and I was like, I woke up in the middle of the night, and it was off. So I don't know, and this is good tape. It's good tape. We told you earlier that the tape, surgical tape, is very good tape. It'll stay on you. I don't know if I, mentally maybe took it off in the middle of the night or something, but you do not need the mouth tape to keep your mouth shut. Have the discipline, Nate. Have the discipline to keep your mouth shut. You're all about discipline, but you need tape to keep your mouth shut when you're sleeping, bro? I just don't know. I just don't know. You tell me. You tell me. How do you feel about that? You tell me.
Are you done?
This man's been cutting up on me this whole show.
You couldn't wait to do this.
No. Sorry. This had to be number 1 on my segment. This is my segment. You heard him. He said, the host, Kevin, this is my segment. So that's the first thing I want to get to. You do not have enough discipline to keep your mouth shut while you're sleeping, so you need to use mouth tape.
All right. Are you done so I can explain myself?
Yeah.
All right. First of all, I have so much I want to say here. Number 1, if you think that it is discipline that is needed to keep your mouth shut while you're sleeping, that's laughable. Number 2, if you care about what your girlfriend thinks or if she laughs at you and you're I don't know if you're insecure, Kevin.
Don't stop it. Stop it right
insecure,
there. I'll put Sam on speakerphone right now. I guarantee there's something that she messes with you about that you just don't want. She messes with you about it. I mean,
I use the mouth tape sometimes when Sam and I are in a debate.
Okay.
To
debacle.
I use it. I'll be like, I'm done talking.
Oh, you're
tape
hilarious.
my mouth shut.
I can see you doing that.
She's
right
like,
now.
really? You're gonna tape your mouth shut right now? I'm like, can't hear you. Sorry.
Sam, if you are listening to this,
can't talk back.
This is a test for her right now. Sam, if you are listening to this podcast, if you are a true one, you will put in the YouTube comments that is true or false. That's all you need to put. True, false, fact, no fact. I just need to know.
I promise you.
Because I can see you doing that.
So, number 1, we talked about it's not really discipline. That's very laughable. Number 2, if you care about what other people think, that's very laughable. Number 3, I will agree that it does come off sometimes at night. So this is actually a real one. People out there, if you try to tape your mouth shut, you're going to wake up and the mouth tape is not going to be on your mouth anymore.
Do you think that's you taking it off in the middle of the night?
I do. This happens.
Me too.
This happens to me as well. But
me too.
Sometimes I'll wake up and the mouth tape won't be there, and sometimes I faintly remember myself taking it off, and I'll be like, "Why did I do that?" But if I do go the entire night with the mouth tape on, and I wake up in the morning and it's still on, that's a win for me.
Right.
Honestly, nowadays, if I make it most of the night with it on, that's a win for me.
Right.
But there are going to be times where you just take it off at night. It isn't natural to sleep with tape on your mouth.
Right.
So I will agree with you, Kevin. I would not say that you are debunking the mouth tape, but some people like you and Sam don't sleep with their mouth open. For me, I do. For some reason, I'm a very ugly mouth sleeper, and I sleep with my mouth wide open, and I'm trying to catch flies and whatever else I'm trying to do, but I need that mouth tape. But I will agree, not everybody needs that mouth tape. If you sleep with your mouth shut and you breathe through your nose naturally, then you don't need the mouth tape.
Could you imagine how many bugs have crawled into your mouth over the years?
None,
dude?
because I tape my mouth shut.
Okay. Anyways, moving on. Thank you. I said mainly all that to mainly mess with Nate because he's been messing with me this entire podcast, and I've been holding off because he's been doing his thing on his segment, because it's his segment, not mine, his. So I let him do his thing. Now is my time to kind of, get into him a little bit. So, but here is an actual, real question for you that I just kind of came up on the spot, while we're talking and stuff. I want to know, basically, when we were kids, we were told a lot of things, a lot of myths, especially 90s, whatever. There was a lot of myths that were told to us that I wouldn't say necessarily led us astray, but we didn't really know, especially when it came to like sports performance, especially when it came to sleep, nutrition, things like that. So what I want to know is, what is the biggest misconception about recovery in sports performance when it comes to sports performance that is just a complete and utter lie?
About recovery specifically.
Yes,
I can
because
think
we
of,
talked about it.
Yeah, I can think of tons of myths that have to do with sports performance in general.
Sure.
Tons about vertical jump.
But just recovery, because we talked about it today.
Recovery.
Yeah.
Myths about recovery.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a complete lie. I mean, like you said, placebo
Okay,
effect, right?
So here's a misconception.
Okay.
A misconception is that you need, and this was big in the bodybuilding world when I did bodybuilding shows.
Okay.
They would often say that you need 1 all the way up to 2 grams per pound of body weight of protein. And I believed them, and I did that. So when I was cutting for my bodybuilding show, at one point, I was eating 400 grams of protein.
That's a lot.
Per day. I do not
What
want
did it look like coming out? I mean, it hurt?
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't mean to be gross.
Right.
But it hurt coming out.
Right.
It
should.
wasn't fun. The more protein you eat, you're going to be pooping out cinder blocks.
Yes.
I'm serious.
You're right.
So you do not need that much protein. Now, bodybuilders probably need a little bit more protein than just basketball players because they often take their muscles to failure and they are breaking down their muscles a lot more than basketball players are.
Yeah.
But you don't need 1 all the way up to 2, 1 to 1.5 to 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight every single day. 0.8 to 1 grams per pound of body weight, like we talked about, is going to be just fine. I don't know if that's really a myth or a misconception or if that's even, accepted to be true anymore. But back when I was doing my bodybuilding shows, that was everywhere.
Can I tell you a quick story?
Yes.
Back when I was in the Marine Corps, this is like when I first tried to start lifting weights, see if I was interested. I feel like every young man, eventually makes their way into the gym to try at least a run at bodybuilding. And I wasn't bodybuilding. I was just really trying to build my strength up. At the beginning, I was putting 2 or 3 scoops of protein in a shaker cup, filling it all the way up with whole milk, shaking it up, downing the whole thing. I felt like complete and utter garbage afterwards. Is it possible to take in too much protein and make yourself sick from it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially at one time, you have to understand that your body. So let's say for me, I weigh 200 pounds. If I were to get 200 grams of protein all at one time,
right,
that's not as effective as if I got 4 different meals with 50 grams of protein. So that's what I aim for.
So moderation. Meals. Don't take it all in at one time.
Correct.
Throughout the day.
Correct. So you have not many people eat just once per day.
Yeah.
Some people do because they're fasting, you know. But for me, I eat 4 times a day. that you don't have to do that. You can eat 3 times a day, 5 times a day, 6
Right.
times a day, whatever is best for you. But make sure you spread out your protein, especially to stimulate protein synthesis all throughout the day, stay in that anabolic state. But yeah, that is a big misconception, is getting too much protein. And this is what I will say: you need more protein if you're in a caloric deficit than you do a caloric surplus. If you're in a caloric surplus, meaning you're consuming more calories than your body is burning, a caloric deficit would be you're burning more calories than your body than you are consuming, meaning you would be losing weight or losing fat. If you're in a caloric surplus, getting enough nutrients, enough food to fuel all of your activities, you don't need as much protein. If you're in a deficit, because you are in a deficit and you are going to be not giving your body enough nutrients, that's literally what a deficit is. You are not giving your body as much nutrients as it is burning. So you are going to need a little bit more protein to preserve that muscle and to help you recover.
I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense. So again, just so you can reiterate the fact, and I know you talked about this earlier, and just hit on it real quick. What's the correct amount of protein that you should be taking in daily?
0.8 grams all the way up to 1 gram per pound of body weight.
Okay, thank you. I mean, again, I know we hit on that, but I just wanted you to repeat.
If you weigh 150 pounds, you get 150 grams of protein.
Or, or just a little shy. Or,
a little shy.
Yeah, I got you.
I'm terrible at math, so I can't tell you 0.8 of whatever body weight I say.
Gotcha. Right. Okay, so moving on. This is actually the last thing, but for some reason I feel like it's probably going to take the longest. And then I'll do a quick review on it because we want to show some love, right? Who are the top 3 trainers right now leading your field that listeners could get any value from? Anything. I mean...
Me. I'm just kidding.
Right. Top 3.
Besides me.
Name 3.
Because I think I'm up here.
No, No, I believe that too. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. His field right now, he is one of the pioneers. I would call Nate a pioneer of his field right now. So there's a lot of people out there, but I would say Nate is definitely top 3. But if you could give a shout out to 3 other trainers, who would they be? And it doesn't have to be in order, right? You don't have to rank best to worst. No, just 3.
Okay. I'm going to rank 3. I want to tell you a very quick story because this is very funny.
Okay.
As you know, I train athletes in person.
Yes.
One of my athletes the other day looked at me and he said, "You know what? I think you're the second best trainer in the world."
Oh, what'd you say to him?
"I think the only other trainer out there who is better than you is PJF Performance." And I had to just laugh at myself because you have laugh in general, because you have to understand that every NBA team has multiple trainers.
Right.
Every Division I school has multiple trainers.
Yeah.
There are so many trainers better than me. I promise you that.
Right.
There are so many trainers in the world that we probably haven't even heard of because they're not out on social media, but they are such good trainers. I'm not number 2 in the world. I'll tell you that right now. I'm probably not even close. PJF is probably close, but there's so many trainers out there for every professional team, for every Division I college team, not even basketball. Every sport that is professional or Division I, there are trainers for that. And I can guarantee you I am not better than all of them.
And I understand that. I was more referring to vertical jump, as it pertains to vertical jump. I know you are hitting on a lot of sports performance things, but talking about, the vertical jump manuals.
I just wanted to tell
programs.
Right? I just wanted to tell that story.
Okay,
I'm going to get to the top 3.
Okay.
So I think 3 trainers in our space, which is vertical jump, sports performance, basketball, knee strength. You got to go number 1 with PGF Performance.
Okay.
You have to go with Uncle Paul, because Uncle Paul is the GOAT. He's the squid goat. You don't know what that means because you're not a squid, but I am a squid. And Uncle Paul is the leader of the squids, and he's the squid goat.
What is a squid?
He's young, but he's feeling like the OG. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. I apologize, Drake. I'm young, but they treat me like I'm feeling young, but they treat me like the OG.
Okay.
That's Uncle Paul.
That sounded better. Yeah.
He's only a couple years older than me. but he's killing the game. He's the OG. So
Yeah.
PGF Performance, I think, is by far leading our field.
Okay, do you ever...
And I feel like everybody listening to this podcast probably knows who PGF Performance is.
Maybe. And if you don't, please leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube.
Yeah. So
If you know Nathanael Morton, but you do not know what PJF Performance is, please let us know in the comments.
there's some people who don't, because I've said it before, and I've said, you know Paul, and they're like, who's Paul? I'm like, PGF Performance.
Right.
It was an older guy.
Right.
It was a dad of somebody else.
Well, because we'll also put you on too, because in your opinion and my opinion, I love all his stuff.
Right.
You know?
So that's number one.
Okay.
PGF Performance. You got to be watching PGF
Can I
Performance.
ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you ever think you will surpass PJF Performance? And I'm not talking about being a trainer for an NBA player, NBA team, none of that. I'm talking about the knowledge and also, and I'm going to say this, the social media presence, because I'm a firm believer in social media is going to be number one key going forward in the future. It just is. I mean, look at it now. So I'm just asking, do you think you will surpass him when it pertains to vertical jump and social media presence?
This is tough to say.
And I just hit him with this on the spot too, by the way. He didn't even know this was coming.
This is very hard for me to say, but I feel like it would be very, 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 very hard to catch Paul.
Okay.
I fully believe in myself and what I can accomplish and what I can learn, and I love this, and I think I can learn so much. But I think it would be very hard to catch Paul. I think it's doable. I think I can catch anybody, but you got to understand, Paul, he studies for hours a day. He's in this just like I am. Honestly, Paul is Kobe, who's waking up at 4 a.m. and training from 5 to 7 and then training from 9 to 11 and then Paul, I hope you're listening to this. This is actually Paul ain't listening.
Paul, if you're listening to this, say something down in the YouTube comments or something, man.
But honestly, I'm going to move on.
We'd love to have you on the show.
I'm going to move on to the next one, but I think it would be very hard to catch PGF Performance. However, I'm playing my own game.
You think we can get him on the show one of these days?
Maybe one of these days.
You think so?
Maybe.
All right.
But this is very important. You gotta fight your own battle. I'm not here to compare myself to Paul or anybody else.
Yeah.
I'm here to fight my own battle and help as many people as I can help.
Well said. Well said. I actually love that.
Number two. Paul is number one that you need to be looking at and looking for and watching their stuff. Mm-hmm. Number two, and I'm going to go a different route, but it's Drew Hanlon. He's very specific on the basketball, on the skills training, he's not really into the sports performance side, but when it comes to basketball, you got to be watching Drew Hanlon.
Is that how if you go to YouTube right now, can you look him up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Most people probably know who he is as well, but Drew Hanlon,
don't. I've never heard of him actually.
Right.
So.
Well, when I went to Vegas, that conference in Vegas, Drew Hanlon put that on.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, cool.
He's a GOAT as well. And he's young.
Right.
All these guys.
Yeah. Pioneers.
Feeling young, but they treat me like the OG.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the last one, let me see. Who's the last one? I'm going to go back to, actually, can I say 4? No?
No. 3. Right. It's not your segment, Nate. It's my segment. I said 3. Tough decision.
I'm trying to take a different route. I talked about sports performance, vertical jump. PGF has that on lock. When it comes to basketball, Drew Hanlon has that on lock.
Okay. So hold on. I'll ask you it does not have to be a trainer. It can be where you go for your information.
Mindset? Can we talk mindset? Or is it in our field? Because I'm not really in the mindset field.
Honestly, that's fine. Let's go mindset.
All right. You already know what I'm going to say. Tommy B. the GOAT. Tom Bilyeu. Bilyeu. I love Gary Vaynerchuk. I love Gary.
That would be mine.
Right? Yeah.
I love Gary because his life is kind of very similar to mine, and he is such a nice person. He'll go out of his way for anybody. I look for that in a person. So anyways, continue.
I love Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
But Tom Bilyeu, just because He's just changed my life. I've listened to him so much. I'm in his business course. He teaches me about business mindset. If you don't know Tom Bilyeu, he has a show called Impact Theory. He's who I got. Don't tolerate weakness in yourself. That's where I got that from. So all of you Action Army, you can thank him for that. We don't tolerate weakness here on the show because I heard that from Tom Bilyeu. He just talks about how you can't accept weakness in your life. If you're going to achieve your goals, you just can't accept excuses. You just have to do what it takes. Either you do or you don't. So spot number 3, number 1, we got PJF. Number 2, we got Drew Hanlon. And number 3, we got Tom Bilyeu.
Okay, so that about wraps my segment up. Real quick, I wanted to just give somebody a shout out, and I will actually flash this comment on the screen. So, a couple videos ago, I think maybe last podcast, I asked you guys that I asked you guys how you knew or how you became to know Nathanael Morton. Obviously, we are longtime friends. We are best friends. Now we are business partners. I wanted to know. Where'd you guys meet Nate? And so far, I had one person. You want to know who that was?
Who?
His name was Willie on on YouTube. And like I said, I'll flash a comment. I liked it and actually commented myself. But Willie said, I found Nathanael on YouTube. I was searching up ways to strengthen my ankle. I actually liked it and commented back and said, thanks for the response. I'll definitely shout you out in the next podcast. So this is actually what I'm doing. Willie, thanks, man. I appreciate you for actually, giving us a comment and putting us out there. And I'm sure you're already subscribing to all his channels and stuff. But thanks, man. I really appreciate you.
Willie, his name might be Will. He's actually part of our members program.
Yeah, well, Willie's just what his name is on YouTube.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, we appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks.
That about wraps it up for this podcast. So these were 5 ways that you can improve and optimize your recovery as an athlete. That was the On the Spot segment. Kevin, is there anything that you have to say before we log off today? This was a very long podcast.
It was.
This was long, but
yeah.
This is what you're going to get.
Yeah.
This is what you're going to get from the Action Athletixx Podcast. Sometimes they're going to be 30 minutes. Sometimes they're going to be 2 hours, especially. So we're just talking. We're trying to as we talk to each other and we joke back and forth, we are trying to provide the most value that we possibly can.
Yes, and thanks for tuning in too. I know that you guys probably have a lot of stuff going on in your lives and whatnot. I mean, God knows we all do, but I just wanted to personally thank you guys because you truly are part of the Action Army.
They are.
Action is everything.
Are you going to do this part?
What?
Can you do it? Knowledge is not.
I can't do the whole thing. I'll do it next time, but action is everything. Thank you, Action Army, for listening.
Right. And last thing I want to say is please leave us a review if you've made it this far. Please rate us 5 stars if you think this is a 5-star podcast, and leave us a review on, Spotify, Apple Podcast, all that type of stuff.
Let us know we can do better.
Yeah, we're open to that.
Yeah, we definitely are. We always want to learn. We want to know. We're always looking to, enhance our knowledge. So please let us know what we can do better.
Right.
We take criticism very well.
And check out our programs.
Yeah, please.
All right. We will see you guys in the next episode.
Wait, say your part. Say it.
Knowledge is not power. Do you understand? Knowledge is power. It actually is. So I'm kind of lying to other people too, because knowledge is actually, it's power. But it's really only potential power. Because if you have knowledge and you don't do anything with it, then is that power? It's not, Kevin. It's only potential power and only becomes power when you take action on what you know. And I heard a great quote one time. This is the quote. The only way that you know something is if you take what you know and create a result from it in your life. So if you don't use your knowledge to make your life better and bring results in your life, then do you even really know? I don't think so.
Let's get it.
This has been episode 3 of the Action Athletixx Podcast. We will see you next time. Peace.
Peace.